So yeah, forging. You know, it can mean forging as in a blacksmith forges in the forge, or it can mean a forgery, and I'll leave it to you to decide. But I've chosen that sort of deliberately because I mean, you know, crafting the modern Viking, but crafting the physicality of the modern Viking, but also crafting the physicality of the modern Viking in perhaps materials that we wouldn't normally recognize as Viking material. I'll start with a pun and a Venn diagram. Venn did the Viking Age end, thank you. We could add more, and obviously a Venn diagram is probably not the most appropriate diagram because all of these bubbles on the outside might be related in different ways as well. So don't take this that they're adjacent in the way they are to mean that that's, you know, stuff from opposite sides of the circle are not also adjacent. But these are some of the things, some of the sort of cultural areas that I think we all, to some extent, agree are relevant when we study modern or contemporary Viking identity. I will, in my research project, in my postdoc, I've focused on sort of physicality, specifically with masculinity studies as a focus. I've focused on fitness culture, also on military culture, and on martial arts, and how they relate to all the other bubbles in the diagram. You might say I've looked at how modern people imagine, but also physically imagine a Viking body, and also how they adorn it. I've looked into male grooming, for example, and in the martial arts aspect of it, how their imagined Viking body interacts or is imagined to interact with other Viking bodies, yeah? Sort of the threat or the feeling of brotherhood with other male Viking, imagined male Viking bodies. I'll talk mainly about training and a bit about martial arts today. There'll be a few references to military, but ask me about military references as well, but I'll keep it more to how individuals craft a physical, sort of an imagined, but also physical Viking body, right? I would argue that the Viking body is an emblem, one emblem of modern masculinity, and it's often presented. I should say my data is primarily websites, published articles, handbooks, popular books, as well as we're supplemented by Instagram and Facebook groups and influencers, mainly. Some pretty large Facebook groups with plus 100,000 members. So in those data clusters, the Viking body is often presented as an example of peak male physique, as an alpha male, which is interesting because it's often part of a group, as wolf-like. And I'll not talk much about the wolf-like qualities of the modern Viking, but I have a paper coming out on this entitled Warriors, Vikings, and Wolves, Oh My. It's about trans-species role-playing. How Vikings are the furries of the pagan community, putting it bluntly. So, and they're presented as the leader of the pack, right? But this is sort of a dream for every individual who consumes these sort of promises, specifically by often vendors of products that are oriented towards males with Viking fantasies. The body is presented as a weapon, but the body is also both an object and a subject of desires, including violent desires. I've included this picture. This is a mixed martial arts fighter from Norway called Emil Weber Meek, and his fighter name is Valhalla. Now, he represents, I think, to sort of in an audience reception perspective, all of these qualities. And I think we could sort of sum it up that to many males and perhaps a lot of females, the modern Viking and perhaps also the ancient original Vikings are sexy axe murderers, right? If that makes any sense, you know? So the axe as analogy, right? I write about the wolf as analogy in the paper, but I've chosen the axe as analogy here because it's a highly popular element of warrior signaling online. You see people posting pictures of themselves wielding axes, all kinds of axes. They often make their own axe because often crafting products is a way also of signaling that you are savvy about history and that you've done your research. Also, of course, it's an opportunity for others to criticize your lack of understanding, which is what social media is about, you know. The axe is also interesting because there is some spillover to Native American iconography, popular iconography, and that's not the only point where we see this in sort of popular receptions of the Vikings. We also see it in hairstyles and in sort of an excessive idea about primitive tribalism, or, you know, there's romanticism there that clearly has Native American roots or inspiration. And the axe functions as an image of the desired bodily qualities. So to some extent, the axe is an analogy of the imagined body. It's hard as steel. It's made from, in this case, steel, not iron, but it's primitive, but it's effective. It's old-fashioned, yet it's still a relevant tool that we still use. And it's both a tool and a weapon, right? So it can do all the civilized stuff, but if push comes to shove, it can chop people's head off, right? And that's, you know, you see that in some of the very passive-aggressive meme posting in Viking pages, that to those I love, I will be kind and gentle, but if anybody crosses me, I will do terrible things, you know? The axe is an analogy of that whole value system. It's deadly, it's threatening, it's phallic, but it's also historically inaccurate a lot of the time. And this is what I mean about forging the Viking body, right? Both because the axe was perhaps not the primary weapon of battle in the Viking Age, or at least it shared its place with spears and swords, although swords were very expensive, but spears especially, and melee weapons, and stones, rocks, you know, sticks. But the axe is singled out to some extent. The body is also mentioned as both a monument and a weapon, right? So the body and the axe are analogous, but the body also becomes a monument. This is a picture of a Swedish influencer called The Golden One, who mixes romanticism about Sparta with sort of, and very homoerotic romanticism about Sparta with Norse fantasies. He's, I think, adjacent to the identitarian movement and to a lot of Swedish neo-fascist movements, as well as I have impressions to the bodybuilding movement and the no-fap phenomenon, right? And here he is posing. So I'm going to talk a bit about the body as monument and weapon, and I would say monument in the sense of training one's muscles, weapons in the sense of being capable of harming other people. First, as monument, Viking workouts, they really sell online, both to people who consider themselves in a let's say, complex and thoroughly imagined way to be contemporary pagans, or people who have simply, in quotation marks, watched a movie or two and think it's a desirable fantasy for a while, or on-off. Obviously, some of these aesthetics would turn off a lot of people who perhaps have been in the Asatru milieu for a long time, but I think the borders are really shifting when it comes to who we can call pagans or heathens or modern Vikings, right? This is an example from Steel Supplements from 2020. It's, the subtitle is A Viking Workout Routine Worthy of Thor. And it's interesting because it has sort of elements of borealism, of like mythopoetic romantic fantasy. There really is nothing more metal, so it has references to them both metal and heavy metal, right? Than the image of a grizzled and bloodied Viking warrior wearing heavy skins and wielding war axes, plural, right? In the midst of a blizzard while a pillaged town burns in the background. It's like, we know the Vikings went pillaging not in winter. It's hard to set a village on fire in a blizzard, you know? Everything is wrong with this narrative, but it's so epic, right? This type of iconography has captured the modern fascination with these ancient Norsemen, blah, blah, blah. While you might not have the blistery landscape of rocks and ice of the Nordic countries, you can still forge a Viking body in your own backyard. And that's what they will help you do. And this is actually a free workout. What they want you to do is buy their supplements that are Viking themed. So you can get Thor's hammer, testosterone boosters, etc., etc. I'll not talk a lot about testosterone boosters today, but I have a chapter coming out called Marketing Masculinities about testosterone boosters, Viking steroids, and even beard transplants. That'll be out in our shared volume in a while. Right, Viking Fit, another example. Get in shape in 8 weeks with Viking Fit. 8-week training program to get into Viking Fit shape. Viking Fit focuses on using nature and your own weight to get you in shape, just as the Vikings did in the Viking Age. I'm quite confident, even though I'm not a scholar of Viking Age history, that training your body systematically in this way was not a very widespread thing. At least I know we don't have any real sources for it. Often based on workouts from the Viking training system by James Buchanan, Edinburgh Functional Fitness. And he mentions that his fitness training system was established 793 AD, right? This is also shared on some martial arts websites that proclaim to teach Viking martial arts. So there's a wider genealogy. I've written about this in a paper called Viking Workouts, but it's in Danish, unfortunately. But you can download the PDF and translate it if you really want to know. My argument is that there's a wider genealogy that goes all the way back to the human potential movement. It's adjacent to contemporary paganism, but it's also inspired by atavism and neo-Luddism, so anti-technological sentiments. It's certainly also inspired by the rewilding movement, including sort of barefoot movement and those kinds of trends, and to muscular Christianity. So I've chosen in my paper to refer to it as muscular paganism. And I hope you will all use that when you write about this. And it's also very tied into alpha male culture online, specifically pickup artists. So this whole idea about learning hacks in how to romanticize or trick women to go to bed with you, which was popular in the 90s and the zeros. You even see some people, for example, most notoriously Andrew Tate, who moves from pickup artist to alpha male influencer. It's probably also inspired by beefcake erotica. That's my take on the visual sort of style of a lot of these pictures, right? It's bodybuilders greased in oil. It mainly sort of caters to a male audience, which is why I also talk about this sort of the body as both an object and a subject of desire. And it certainly also ties in with modern stoicism, or broicism as it's called. So think Joe Rogan or David Goggins or some of all these masculinity influencers. And the brosatru phenomenon, which is sort of, let's say, poorly defined and poorly studied, but it's worth mentioning. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Viking steroids, so here's a small intermission picture. This is from the website vikingsteroids.com, where you can get a Viking Valhalla bulk stack, and the specifications are there. It's only 260 pounds for a stack, right? And there are not a lot of these sites, but they exist. And I mean, I might be damaged by looking too much at this, but I think it's quite homoerotic. Right. Let's move from the body as monument to the body as weapon. Oh, I'm doing well with time. Viking warriors, right? So crafting or forging Viking bodies that are capable of violence is another very important thing, right? There are the first three that I have here, Glima, Stav, and reenactment of weapon arts, are often sort of, and I think rightly so, characterized as those that rest the most on at least a desire to have historical sources, but they're not always, let's say, treated with utmost criticism. Glima was an Icelandic wrestling art that actually, if you look in the older sources, people are quite aware that this is a style of folk wrestling, but it becomes embedded in this Viking narrative. And is now being taught. Even actually, there's a Swedish teacher who I think teaches a lot in South and Middle America. So Glima has become an international phenomenon. Stav has a very dubious lineage that I think I'll probably insult a few of my own friends here, but has mainly Japanese roots, but have been mixed with rune yoga or ideas from rune yoga. But then we find sort of reenactment of weapons arts, which is often also referred to as experimental archaeology, where you see people, for example, in Viking villages who do both group combat and single combat with swords, axes, etc. That would probably, in most cases, be the most well-researched aspect of it, where you have people studying, you know, impact on skulls from excavations and going, well, which trajectory must the axe have had? How did people hold the axe to chop another person in the head? What they then do is they fight and they try to reenact this in uncontrolled, semi-uncontrolled combat. Then we have wrestling, and here I mean show wrestling. If you look at like show wrestling, there are a couple of wrestling groups that refer to the Viking Age. I'll not mention them a lot, but they're entertaining, but they're very much the American super fantasy-based, heavy metal-inspired idea of the Viking Age. And then there is mixed martial arts that I will be talking a bit about, but not too much, unfortunately. But yeah, ask me about mixed martial arts as well. So, and adjacent to that, if you look at the poster on the left, bare knuckle fighting. So mixed martial arts is, I was originally supposed to study reenactment mainly. That was my plan, then COVID hit, and it was impossible to do that kind of field work. And I decided to study with more of a focus on available data. And mixed martial arts certainly has that because of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC, which has grown immensely and is I mean, some of their fights online have, you know, 600,000 views. They are a global network. You have, like, I think it was in one case like close to 1 billion viewers according to their statistics. You know, it's really a huge industry, and they have a lot of fighters that use references to the Viking Age. For example, Emil Valhalla, Weber Meek, Guram, the Swedish Viking, Kutateladze, Søren, the true Viking buck from Denmark. There are lots of them. And some of them will just have the name Viking or Valhalla. Others will enter the ring wearing furs and an axe and will sort of do a dramatic role play and really try to frame this sports combat as a kind of deadly Viking battle. There are Viking references in a lot of gym names. Here I include mixed martial arts, but also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a core component of a lot of mixed martial arts, and wrestling and boxing as well. But these are competition martial arts, full contact, that are represented in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And you see that Valhalla and Mjolnir are very popular names. I actually know one of the guys who has one of these gyms, Valhalla with the goat in the top, and he's not a big Viking reenactor. He just thinks that Scandinavia is really cool. So we have to remember that people don't always signal what we want them to signal, and it's messy, right? Nevertheless, what we do know is there is a lot of Viking signaling in martial arts. Specifically also when people want to sell merchandise, right? Here's an example of, this is called a rash guard. We or they or people wear this in order to not get skin infections or burn wounds from wrestling on the ground. This is Son of Odin short-sleeved rash guard from Viking Gear MMA. And the text is really interesting because a lot of the time we have these promises of archaeological time travel or sensory immersion or somehow stepping out of our own reality and gaining superpowers in an imaginary domain, right? I am called Gladowar, Grim, Raider, and Third. I am one-eyed. I am also called Highest and True Guesser. I am Grimnir. I am the Hooded One. I am Allfather, Gondlir, Wand-Bearer. I have as many names as there are winds, as many titles as there are ways to die. My ravens are Hugin and Moonin. Thought and memory, my wolves are Freki and Geri. My horse is the Gallowed. I am Odin. The Allfather is here. It's clearly that now it's not Odin speaking, it's the company, right? Dominate your enemies and feel the power and wisdom of Odin surge through your body. Get the brand new Son of Odin shorts and rash guard, right? But this is super interesting because obviously when you just put on the rash guard, you probably, let's say, a minority of people will experience this. But the thing is, you wear this rash guard while you punch other people in the face and get punched in the face. So what they're tapping into is an actual adrenaline situation that people then transform in their imagination. So it has sort of elements of biohacking almost, like situational biohacking, right? We see it in events as well. I had the Ragnarok bare knuckle fighting. Again, that's an old teacher of mine who actually was supposed to fight in that. It was framed as Eastern Europeans and Britons against Norwegians. Yeah. So that was sort of the final battle, right? They had invited people from specifically Poland, I think, and the United Kingdom, and they were then pitted against Norwegians. But you also see it in Spain, for example, and I mean in a lot of different countries. Right, so I'll move from martial arts and finish with sort of a bit more, opening it up a bit, and then a bit of theory as well. The Viking can also function, I think, as more of a warrior metaphor, not necessarily for people who lift a lot of weights, do a lot of steroids, and punch each other in the head. On the left is a post from I think this one is from the New Age Vikings community. Anyone here have a dangerous job and feel like you're going to battle? I say a small chant each morning to ask to be granted a seat in Valhalla, right? So here, battle and the risk of losing one's life or getting injured is sort of equated with each other. Life is a battle if you have a risky job. On the right, it's a Danish quote from the Danish Minister of Foreign Affairs, who says, the Minister of, or that's what the title says, Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs has spoken to the Danish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kofod. The Danes fight like Vikings for Ukraine, right? So, of course, here's a reference to soldiers, but they're equated with Vikings fighting for Ukraine. Which leads me to the next picture. Examples of holy war and martyrdom that use references to the Viking Age. So we're sort of military adjacent for a while here, just for 1 or 2 slides. And I'm almost done, I think. So the left is again, it's a post from Viking community on Facebook. Vikings, everyone, do you know if a 22-year-old guy with a shotgun and .22 rifle and 0 combat experience can join the fight for Ukraine? If I can, how do I sign up? At first I didn't want anything to do with this, but since Ukraine seems to be winning, I want to join, and if I die, Valhalla or Folkvanger, it is. Right, holy war. Potential martyrdom. On the right, it's a TikTok video. It's a screenshot of a freeze frame. Ukrainian soldier blows himself up along with a bridge to stop Russian tanks from advancing. Repost this in memory of the brave soldier. Till Valhalla. So there is sort of memory of a soldier who blows himself up, and it's framed as Viking martyrdom. The reason I bring this is, of course, because it's interesting, but also because, and this is more ask me about military and Vikings, and we can talk about this, that I have a suspicion that both interest in sort of the militant side of Vikings, but also the rhetoric really changed after 9/11 due to a lot of factors, but also due to this. And that also there has been a shift, which is also, for example, illustrated in how the American Republican far right are now beginning to agree with the Taliban, you know, and be outspoken about how the Taliban were actually right on a lot of things. That we see a tendency towards ideas about holy war and martyrdom being legitimate ways of acting as people who, let's say 10 years ago, saw this as the cultural other, the behavior of the cultural other in the frame of the rhetoric, right? There's also self-irony, and now we're moving away from the heavy stuff, right? Tonight's hunt was a success. You know, this is also how, on the website New Age Vikings, which doesn't only have New Age stuff, it has a lot of super toxic militant stuff. One picture I didn't bring was a guy posting all of his weapons and just talking about how he carried them for Viking self-defense. But you also have people like this just posting tonight's hunt was a success. He pillaged pizzas from the local pizzeria, you know? And I think we need to remember all the time that there's very little chance for us to really understand what is the intention behind communication on the internet, right? So a little bit of theory before I end. I've found that this book, and I just want to recommend it to you, it's John Koenig's The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, is a really good book for people studying historical reception. It's not an academic book. He started it as a website. He does have, I think, a master's degree in history, but he invents, it's a fictional dictionary. He invents words for feelings that we all have but lack words of. So go check it out. It's really good. And he has the word anemoia for nostalgia for a time you've never known, which I think applies to a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. So I'm going to be using that, and I invite you to do it too. Which leads me to a bit of a more difficult fellow. John Koenig is really nice. He gives you like 2-paragraph definitions with a little anecdote, and that's it. You can take it or leave it. Jean Baudrillard, I think I've read him, like I've read this text 14 times. I'm not still sure what he means or what he bases his opinions and analysis on, but I feel like I like it, so I brought it today, because I think he has this sort of loosely semiotic, philosophy that's interesting when it comes to historical reception and, let's say, sort of folklore, fake lore distinctions. He has the idea that the image has successive phases, that the first is that it, and I think this could be taken in his effect as successive phases, but I invite you, I think, more to think of it as a spectrum, right? And the first phase is that the image is the reflection of a basic reality. The second is that it masks and perverts a basic reality. The first, or the third, that it masks the absence of a basic reality. And the fourth, that it bears no relation to any reality whatever. And of course, he doesn't, I don't think he defines reality very clearly. His text is very cryptic. It is more of a primary source than a secondary source, but go read it, tell me what you think. And yeah, the stage 4 bears no relation. Things become their own pure simulacrum. And according to Baudrillard, contemporary society is dominated by phase 4, in which the copy precedes the original, right? Which is, I think we find that also in like Hal Foster's idea about the avant-garde returning from the future. And it's all very sort of quasi-mystical. At the same time, I have this gut feeling that this somehow speaks to some of the stuff that we're studying. 2 minutes, that's perfect. It's my second to last slide. Finally, I just wanted to invite you to to check out Adam Possemeyer and perhaps also Carol Cusack, because they've actually, I think, taken Baudrillard's ideas and turned them into, mixed them with the sociology of religion in a way that makes more sense or has more sort of actual data that they, it's not just words and postulations. I mean, it should be mentioned that Baudrillard deliberately includes references, for example, to New Testament stanzas that don't exist, because he wants to, he makes the medium the message, so he lies to his reader. Possemeyer and Carol Cusack are easier and more straightforward. So they have the idea of a hyperreal religion as something that's blatantly invented. Of course, it could be argued that all religion is invented, but as it openly uses works of popular culture as its basis, right? This could be the pilgrimage to Kattegat because somebody has seen Vikings. It depends on whether, of course, those who construct ideas about religious expressions and practices actually distinguish between popular culture, fiction, and historical sources. That's my point, not theirs. And again, like the examples I have presented are not necessarily all part of a cohesive cultural milieu. They're not. But they're a construct based on my choices of research, design, and data collection, as will always be. However, they share the common factor that they're milieus where warrior identity is awarded a central role, either by actors themselves or by people trying to sell stuff to people. And modern Viking warrior identity sometimes overlaps with a religious identity, but it's not necessarily a religious identity in itself, It's messy like that as well. Finally, I just wanted to talk about the masculinity aspect of it, because modern Viking masculinity is also sort of composite and complex, as you can see by this picture of this lovely fellow on the right. It's also from a fitness training website, by the way. I would argue that modern Viking masculinity rests on the idea of a modern crisis of masculinity, which the Vikings did not suffer from. We see that literally being sort of outspoken on a lot of, specifically on sites that want to sell something to people, because before they can sell solutions, they need to plant the idea that there is a problem, right? This presumption seems to be imported by also from social media influencers outside the Viking sphere. So masculinity influencers who are in collaboration with product brands, right? And the thing is, it all rests on a logical fallacy because everybody wants to be an alpha male. But if everybody is an alpha male, then technically nobody is an alpha male. You could, and I was thinking about that during your presentation, you could remove alpha male and say Albanian instead. You know, if everybody is an Albanian, nobody is an Albanian. And that's sort of the problem with a lot of these logics, right? Thank you for your attention. I end with the peak physique, the techno-Viking, of course. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, when I sent this our program to a common friend of us, Professor Olsson from the Stockholm University, she answered me on WhatsApp. She said, "What Czech Vikings are?" In this way, you know Suzanne. All of us, we know Suzanne. And say, "What these Czech Vikings are?" Yes, we have. They call themselves Czech Vikings. They have a lot of activities, offline and online. I will start with the online activities. I want to stress that even if they are the same people, we have to consider what Robert Kozinets, the founder of Nethnography, said, that the same persons, they have different attitudes when they are online and when they are offline. Our colleague psychologists know that. Mirella, I suppose that you support me in this statement. Yes, so we will see that this difference today. So I made two field research, one online and just in part offline, because I'm not a part of this community, but you saw yesterday that I'm a part of another community. And but of course I have contacts with these people because these communities are connected very often. But I solved because I need many data. I asked to a student, which I want to say thank to her, Miss Velková, Katerina, to make field research specialized on people belonging to this Facebook group, Czech Vikings, but to try, because the students, they have also to try. I say always the qualitative research is, it seems to be easy, but the most difficult thing is to get the trust of these people. Otherwise, these people, they start to imagine histories that are not true. So we could say that very often the online research, I don't want to say the online data represent a higher reality than offline data. It seems funny, but it is true that we know that the people, when they online expressions are maybe more open than the offline expression. Offline, when you come, if you are not a good friend of them, and especially if you are a researcher, you know, you say, hello, if we want to respect 100% the rules of American Association of Field Research, Anthropology, blah, blah, blah. Hello, I'm an anthropologist, I'm studying your attitude to be Viking. And you say, yeah, my attitude to be Viking, boom. This is a possible answer. A possible answer. So it's very difficult. So I'm glad that the students, they need to know the technology, the way to approach the respondent, and I think she was successful. So I'm using also part of her data that are maybe we'll try to publish or part of her diploma thesis, because she worked in another team that I was leading, but it was another project. About my online work, I have to choose because among these, those are the main groups, Facebook groups, because we decide that Mirella will study TikTok. I'm doing on Facebook. Luigi, I think Reddit. Yes, great. So everything we wanted to have in the plan is covered. So I'm a boomer. I was born in 1962, so the boomer has to do Facebook. Young people, yeah. But anyway, yeah, there are some young people even on Facebook still today. For example, the biggest group is this Runi Poanstwia Germanska Magie, which means, I stress that all the pages are in Czech language. So that's the plus of my research, because not very much people, I mean, of course today we can use the translator, but the question is not just the translator, it's also to know a little bit this word of the Czech Vikings. So I prefer this one. You understand the other, Vikingové, Vikingové CZ, Čeští Vikingové, it means Czech Vikings, Vikings CZ, Vikings. But better, that is quite complete, but it's a little bit more soft. It is this chat, runes, paganism, and German magic. So I suppose, because when I make research, I like to arrive to the research as a virgin. I mean, I don't want to know very much about my field, because otherwise I can too much intervention from my side, too many prejudice from my side in the further research. So I start the 12th of March in this group, because it was the task. So the first thing I know, another question. Originally on Facebook, it was possible to collect quantitative data with a program which was organized directly by Meta. It is still called Crowtangle, but Facebook decided to close Crowtangle. There is a reaction. From the audience that say that it's a kind of censure from Facebook. But after I listened yesterday, but we were also speaking in this week's the Mirella's paper. I'm also thinking that maybe the question of Meta, we don't know, of course. But if it's true, and of course we understood yesterday that it's true what Mirella said. They don't want to show not the question that you are scraping data, because you can scrape data in a manual way. I mean, using these systems is just a way to have it, to have big data. But theoretically, you can spend. Okay, Mirella spent many hours, but I also spent some hours. You can do theoretically manually. Of course, you can never have such amount of big data. But the problem is not, but that you can escape some data even from Facebook. Also, if Crowtangle is not working. But I think after yesterday paper on Mirella, I think that maybe the reason is because Facebook knows, of course, Meta knows that the data that you scrape are always different from other data, because the visualization of Facebook, it's different. Yeah. So in this case, I choose the traditional way to observe and to get data from the observation, like the traditional participating observation. I didn't participate in very much. I didn't write nothing. I mean, but I can say that because I'm old and some of these people, they know me and so on. I was, in these 3-4 months when we were together, a part of this online community. What I noticed, the first thing of these Czech Vikings, that they, it's very important for them to spread book publications. Yes. This is one of the first thing that I noticed. The topics are topics from one side, topics typical. This is hymnos for Loki, typicals for a translation, of course. 95% of the books that are presented in this Facebook are book translations, because we have to consider that not all the people on Facebook knows English or other languages. Of course, many young people, but first of all, not all of them are young. But second, in 90,000 people, you can consider that many people, they have no university or higher education and so on. So this is a characteristic of the Czech Vikings, that they use mostly. If you consider some top colleagues, for example, I invited also to the seminar a colleague, but now today is in Iceland. Yeah, it's really the biggest expert in the Norse mythology here in the Czech Republic. It's quite young, but of course it's somewhere between Iceland and Norway, you know. And this is a colleague of the Charles University. But we are concentrated here on our university more on media than on mythology. I mean, we try to understand how the mythology has influence on contemporary part of the society. In our case, this kind of subculture that we call Vikings, Czech Vikings. So this is one of the books that was translated. This is quite interesting book also. This is a bestiary, for example, a medieval bestiary that in this group of Czech Vikings, what I understood, they make a mix, but not a classical New Age mix. Okay, there are also some New Age tendencies, like Viking books or like, but they try to be a little bit more independent from because they feel what is the New Age tendency. But they try to be independent, finding something which is also Czech and Slavic. Because let's not forget that for example, in the Pagan Federation, these New Age groups, which they have a strong path, Northern path, Celtic path, but they have no Slavic path. So when you put something which is local or Slavic, in this case, you have the sensation that you are not a New Ager like the others. More than, for example, some people between Asatru and Vysoká, that they are, as you know. So bestiary, Czech bestiary, also something which is really, I would say, far from paganism, but it's now the angels, the Goethe anthology, all this history connected with the Hebrew tradition, because it's not an Orthodox tradition, so we can find also this kind of input to this among Czech pagans. And of course, the shamanic path. The shamanic path, which is, it's always, the shamanic path is always, you cannot make mistakes, I would say, among these groups. Of course, we can discuss if the Yggdrasil, Odin, and so on, all this, I would say, theological discussion, if we can use this, about the function of Odin, of the Yggdrasil as a tree and connected. But these are discussions that, okay, there are also between some Czechs, maybe, but there is absolutely no problem because it's a part of this this collective image of the paganism of the northern world to have also a book connected with shamanism. And we can suppose that it's not the northern shamanism. It can be Siberian or Central American. About Central American, for example, we find also this very known books of my generation, maybe a generation also older than me. And it's also interesting. This, for example, this review is a Christian review. I mean, it's a Christian. The main redactor of this review is a colleague from theological faculty. He's a theologist, evangelic theologist, or Hussite, but he's a little bit like Massimo Introvigne. I don't know if you know. Massimo Introvigne is a Catholic, but he studies everything which is outside, you know. And this colleague used to teach everything which is outside, with interest also for Slavic pagans, or from also true. And for example, I met him. I don't want to say the name anyway. I met him 2 months ago to a Slavic celebration. He used to bring students, you know, but he stayed a little bit because he's a Christian, of course. So, but on the other side, the part which is supposed to be pagan, because when we say Czech Vikings, I agree, like in Norway, of course, that many of these Czech Vikings are not pagans, but the mainstream is to be pagan. This is the mainstream, of course. But there are also people that say, hey, okay, but I'm Christian and so on. But say, okay, why you can stay with us because you drink meat and by the horn. Okay, if you want to go to the church, go to the church, because it also happened that the Danes and blah blah blah, they became Christian. You know, they find, because the community, they want to resist within the community. Another topic I recognize is the topic of the stones. So when here in the Czech lands, I would say, we have also our menhir, and so for these people, it's when there is no money to go to Norway or to go to England. You can go during the weekend in one of the places of our country and make a photo and to post the photo and say, I was there and so on. Maybe they don't know very much about the meanings of menhir and so on, but the menhir, the stones, are an important topic of this community that is good to show them. And of course, if someone visits a museum from north, for example, from on the right side is Denmark, or on left side is England, I think. It's very important to, or if he finds on internet history or description of interesting stones, it is important to have also this element. Yeah, today they are very angry. Today, very angry. This word I cannot translate because it's very hard word in Czech language. But you can imagine what does it mean.
Villains or something.
I'm sorry?
Would it be like villains? You know, not even.
No, but villains is too polite.
It's too polite.
Yeah, it's a vulgar word. But it is very strange that Facebook didn't censor this word. Yeah. This morning they post. Just this morning I was coming here by train. The whole video when they are spraying there, which is very interesting in the future because the connection between the ecological scene and the pagan scene was always very strong. But after what happened, I don't know which will be in the future, because this is really from the point of view of pagans, it's really too hard. I don't know why they did to a place that has nothing in common with capitalism, with destruction of earth and so on. Yes, because they wanted to get attention of themselves, but this is too much for me too. Even I was member of Green Party and so on, but this is too much for me. Yeah. Yes. This is to understand the eclectic, how this group is eclectic. When I opened this group, the 12th of March, the first thing I found was this Tsians, which have nothing in common with Norse or German mythology. Other thing which is important, no division, no war between Germans and Slavs. This is a thing that I remember in the 90s, there were just very, very few pagan groups here. One was a Osotro group. The second one was created by me. It was ecological Slavic. The third one it was Slavic fascist. After we joined the Slavic fascists with our ecologists, you say how is possible? Because they were not anymore fascist, and from today maybe I'm not anymore ecologist. I don't know what I see. You know? But really, it was my first contact with fascists, and I saw that they were really nice people. I mean, and they believed in this principle of to be clean, you know, to have a very, very high moral support. And I remember in that time they educated their children to this playing with war and so on. They say, hey, attack the Germans. And this is my I had two problems with them, not because when they were young they were skinheads or something like that. I have two problems. The first one, they stress too much to these Indo-European roots. So for me, you know, when I see Indo-European, I remember Aryans and so on. So I debate with him, and our position was a position not supporting the Indo-European mythology. The second, I say, and they respect me for that, I say, the Germans, they were even pagan. So why you are educating your children to attack the Germans? And from that time, no one, it was finished, this strange difference between Slavic and German pagans. So we went officially, we were officially to visit Osotru, the Osotru community here. They accept us as guests. They make a big ceremony and so on from us. So from that time, Slavs and Vikings in Czech Republic, they have really very good relation. And this is one of the proof of that in a typical Czech Viking group, there are very good informations about the Slavic summer solstice. Because we have more information here about the Slavic summer solstice than, for example, the midsummer. Because we are not there, you know. Of course, the few groups really religious that they are active pagans, they celebrate midsummer and not Ivan Kupalo. But for the mass of the people, because 19,000 people is a mass, you know, it's more easy to explain through this Slavic symbology. Even for them that they, because there is also another problem about the Slavic symbology, that the Czech Republic sometimes, especially in the 90s, when you were speaking about Slavs, Slavs, the people they make in common with communist regime. Because you know, the Soviet Union sometimes say, we are the Slavic Brotherhood and so on. So many people, I remember in the 90s, when I met some people here and say, I'm not Czech, I'm Celt, but not pagan, normal people and so on, because they want everything which was connected with Slavic ethnicity, if exists a kind of Slavic ethnicity. It's very, I don't want to open another discussion on that, but for these people it was important to say, no, I'm Viking, I'm Celt, but I mean, people meeting in the street. I mean, not belonging to any communities, because the word Slav was really a taboo word. But now, in this mailing list, German or Viking mailing list, or I mean, mailing list, it's a form of a very old form. You will find no problem with the Slavs. For example, the next slide, you see, I say Midsommar against Ivana Kupala. Of course not. Yeah, of course not. We have there is a great respect from Northern festivities, but of course most of the festivities are Slavic festivities, you know, because Northern festivities, they are in the north, they are in your lands. Yeah, if you not consider the very few. Now Asatro, the original Asatro of my generation are not active anymore. You know, they spread in these general groups that one day they say Slava Peruna, which means glory to Perun, and another day they say glory to Freya. No problem for them. So we have this mix. That's why I say it's not a new age, because new age Perun and Freya are not so common there. No. But there is no problem. And in this situation, another thing, this is the third topic, the woman. That's why yesterday I make with you, because it's important. It's important to show. This is Tsataluyuk. I think all of you know this, which is more than 5,000 years old statue. You know. So it has nothing in common with Slavic, with German, and so on, because it's pre-Neolithic. Even she's so fat, I would say, this goddess. You know? And it's also, for example, this figure of the woman are on internet still very important. The woman, not men. Yeah. Or for example, of course. Demeter, in this case, is with Themis. You know? We find a lot of reference to the woman. For the reason we said yesterday, because of course there is this mythology that there was a golden age for the woman that is lost. But we had this discussion yesterday. I want just to say that even in our country, there is this this mythology of the golden age that we lost because of the Christians. And as you see, not just Slavic or German, but also Roman or Native American, Navajo. Yeah, Navajo woman. It's a woman, so respect. And those are, now I come to the Theo discussion. Yeah, this is the Czech Viking. Yeah. I suppose this is your slide. No, it was my slide. One yesterday I said, yeah, go back, you remember. No, because I have in my head my slide. This is the slide. So this is not beef cake. It is a sadlo cake. I don't know sadlo in English. I'd say lard cake. Yes. So this is, I would say that the Czech model is less Hollywoodian model. I don't want to say that there is no influence on Hollywood, but in Hollywood this is a negative feature. But this is the majority of the Czech men, the Czech Viking men. They look like this one, not like this Hollywood or Marvel feature. Yeah. An important thing of the Czech Viking, and now especially we will see when we will see the offline interviews, is that they many Czech Vikings, not only men but also women, they come to become Viking after the so-called, they called them history battles. Because there are a lot, hundreds of groups everywhere here in Czech Republic. They play this these games. And after they say, okay, but if they play as Vikings, okay, they say, okay, I'm a Viking. And and in this moment, they start to be more active. They buy books, especially they read Edda, and all the things that we know, like a Norse boy. Oh my God! Or my the eclectism. The eclectism. You see, the eclectism can arrive also to India. Yesterday you spoke about irony. Yes, self-irony. The Czech Viking, they have also their self-irony, and they say Schweiking, from word Schweik. Schweik is this feature on the right. Yeah. I get Schweiking, yes. Or this one, pizza cutter. You know, to mix some element of the Iron Age with the common element. Yes. This is also shy. Já jsem chtěl říct, že z vaší skupiny do nebe nepůjde nikdo. I want just to tell you that people in this group, they will never go to the heaven. Okay, this is the and the last thing, the commercial things, of course, selling hours to teach runes. But I would say that the commercial things, okay, you can find, because you cannot say to these people selling their products when they are selling the runes, you can say, don't post your post. But it's not mainstream, I would say. But we have also this tendency that you showed yesterday. Yes, this is for you, Stian. Okay, let's do it this way. Because now it starts the part of the offline. For example, this is a photo I did in a bar just here downstairs last year, when I was supposing that maybe we'll have this grant, and I asked this guy, he say, can I make the photo over your head? I say, of course. Yeah. And yes, with runes. Yeah. And but because I want to respect, the time you gave me. Just I want to say that when a Czech became Viking, thanks to historical battles, what attract the Czechs to Viking culture, mythology, and I will publish, I think, these things. So there this question that I say, why a Czech likes to be a Viking, yeah? And we have this question. I always dreamed of embarking on the sea voyage with friends to explore the world. But nowadays it's rare to discover any country as first explorer did. Besides travel, what captivates me is the courage and strength of the Vikings, who were willing to go to great lengths to honor the word, even if it meant overcoming for some. You know better than me. Yeah, woman, it's very. In every day, does your interest in Viking culture manifest itself? But this is also Danish. It's from. Yeah. It's
a lot of criticism.
Yes, it's very cool. Okay, this is my last slide. And remember, we are not. Yes. We are not looting and pillaging. We are liberating them for their oppressive possession. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Professor Maiello for has invited me, and to all of you for your works and your researches. So, I would like to expose a brief research about a theme that, the role of Norse mythology in the construction of a video game, a very famous video game, which is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And let's begin with an image. On the right side, you can see an image generated by GPT-4 when I asked it, him, her, we don't know, to give me something about Norse mythology and video games. And it is clear that we are not talking about Norse mythology, okay? But about the projection, the mediatic projection of the Norse mythology. And I would like to be clear, because I think that I'm going to say many things that with the Norse mythology has nothing to do. Yeah. So, okay, I have to change like that. My research questions was, what is the function of Norse mythology in the longevity of the video game, The Elder Scrolls V? Because Skyrim, as a singularity, is the most longeve RPG video game in the history of video games. It has been published in 2011, and till now it is one of the most played RPG in the world. So my question was, Norse mythology has a role in this longevity, and to investigate this, I've tried to understand if there is a connection between the Norse mythology and socially relevant discourses that contribute to the longevity of a video game. Now, just more very quickly, the video games market is more and more important for the economy, and in the last years has surpassed in investments the cinema market.
And also the porno market, which was even, yeah.
Well, this is very, very important because the porno market is an indicator of.
Yeah,
okay.
It was higher than the
yeah.
market, but now it's the video game
yeah.
market.
Yeah, well, the major part is video games on smartphones, on mobile phones, obviously, and the most great markets are USA and China. But anyway, the video games on console or on PC are increasingly going up in the statistics. So, I have tried to understand why Norse mythology is a lore so important for many cultural products, from movies to video games. Well, first of all, in the pop and media culture, Norse mythology has been used a lot of times. Tolkien has refounded the fantasy in the beginning of the 20th century, but there are even the sagas from Marvel and many TV series. The most famous, obviously, is Vikings. But the Norse mythology, I think it is very useful for the gamification of the of the cultural industry. Why? Because the gamification is based on a polarization between a hero and an enemy, but it needs support for as an infrastructure for the lore. And Norse mythology is very most useful in this, for example, more useful of the Christian mythology. And as a difference with Greek mythology, that I would like to explain you better. Then, the heroes of the Norse mythology are imperfected. Imperfection, I forgot the I. I'm sorry. They are very humans, like Greek gods, after all. And so they are very, they can adapt. And the player has, it's more easy for a player to identify with a mythological hero, or to identify with the gods. That is, after all, the tutor of the hero. The Nordic setting has social, cultural, and historical advantages. Now, why social? Cultural, because it is the setting of the hegemonic part of the earth. It is in the north. It is made by white people. It is not a black mythology, but there is a very important point. Yes, it has a white root, but the fantasy is based on a multiracial setting. So, even if it is a win-win game, okay, we are in a Nordic cold, but more, how can I say, relevant social setting, but in the meantime, you can be black, you can be red, you can be of any racial in the world, and you stay there perfectly. And in the same time, I was trying to tell this yesterday, is I think it is an anti-hegemonic appeal. It has an anti-hegemonic appeal. Because Norse mythology is, okay, has had a little period in which Norse mythology has touched the authority, and has been during the Nazi period. Like in Italy, for example, the pagan mythology has touched the authority in the fascist period. But it is a period that started and ended, and after all was defeated. And so we refer to Norse mythology not just for the Nazis, but for the ancient Vikings, for the ancient people in Scandinavia. And so it is an anti-hegemonic narration, because they were defeated by what? The empire. But in the same time, they were the base for the fall of the Roman Empire. The Norse mythology was the mythology that, underground, defeated the great authority of the empire. And then, as I was saying, there is a transversality of subjects, even in the same mythology itself. Because we have motifs and themes, or heroes like Loki, Freya, Odin, that permits gender and racial equality in the projection of the player. And I would like to say a very important thing about gamification. Gamification is based, why it is the main infrastructure of the cultural industry, of the digital cultural industry. Because the digital industry is based on an interaction between the user and the narration. So it is really very important for the user to identify in a person, in a character, in a hero, in the hero of a story. And when I say hero, I'm talking in the perspective of the narrative approach, okay? And so the transversality of subjects is very important. You can be a hero even if you are an elf, if you are a trickster like Loki, if you are a woman or sorceress like Freya, or a female warrior as a Valkyria, or an old mage like Odin, okay? Then, many products inspired by Norse mythology. We were talking about this yesterday, like Jotun and Hellblade, but even God of War, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Every game takes some different part of Norse mythology and declines it in different ways. God of War, in this sense, is very similar to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because they are sagas. God of War, the first God of War was set in the ancient Greece, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla obviously is a saga and was started in medieval and a more Mediterranean setting. Okay, but they are based on the hero, on the Viking, on the strong man. But Jotun and Hellblade changed this paradigm, and the heroes are girls or women, or an orc in the case of Hellblade, for example. The Elder Scrolls V is open from this point of view. You can be whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be. So, the Elder Scroll. Now, which is the interaction between Norse mythology and the Elder Scroll lore, the Skyrim lore? The setting, the medieval Scandinavian setting, villages, weapons, clothes, and even mods, as we will see. The narration and the themes are inspired by Norse mythology. Like, for example, some themes like an impending destiny. The hero is destined to save the world in a great mythical battle, like the Ragnarok. And the dragon's return that will appear at the end of the game. Or the Valhalla, which is the prize for the, not the prize, the trophy for the hero, etc. The character races and mythical creatures are inspired. Why? Because we have the Norse that are very white, very tall, very blonde, but we have even elves, dwarves, giants, trolls, dragons. We have the imperial characters, which are short and black, like me. No, I'm not short, but I'm black.
I'm short and black.
Okay. And, well, a lot of different races. The gods are Shor, which is inspired by Thor, and Kine, which is similar to Odin. And then the language. The language is very important in Skyrim. Because the hero must become the hero that will defeat the dragon, acquiring powers. And the powers are acquired by reading words that are written in a draconic alphabet, which is inspired by the Elderfoot and Runic alphabet. And the hero can use even runes, which in the game are static spells. Just a quest, for example. This is on Reddit was indicated as one of the quests more inspired by Norse mythology. This is the Chief of His Call quest, which is an adventure that is set underground in a cave where the hero finds a Reikling tribe. The Reikling tribe is a race in the Elder Scroll, but it is inspired by the Jotnar, the mythological creatures that can fight or can ally with humans. And the hero of the game, the player, has to help them to defeat a tribe, a village of humans. And at the end, if the player do this, acquire a great ally, which is all the tribe of Reikling, but has to defeat the chief. So the player becomes the chief of the Reikling. Then, so the motives, the reason of the longevity. There are various reasons. The first is that, no, the first. I think that the most important is the social dimension of Skyrim, the cloud of discussions that the game has been able to trigger on internet, and the most numerous groups are surely on Reddit. In particular, one group which is Skyrim, the subreddit Skyrim. So, what is the function of these communities? The sharing of knowledge and theories, of course. They talk about the game, but in the lore of the game. So they talk about the lore of the game itself. But there is the modding community. Now, modding is indicated by many users on Reddit as because all this investigation that I made it on Reddit itself. Okay. The modding community, the modding has been very important because because in this way Skyrim has become an infinite game. Skyrim can be anything, and in the game can be transformed to become anything else. But there is an interesting interaction between the lore given by the author, by the production, by the Bethesda Game Studies, and the lore that is created by players. Players can change the lore, but not completely. You cannot change the architecture, for example, of the game, the way in which the player fights. They cannot invent a shotgun, for example. They must remain in the main lore of the game. The rest can be done infinitely. And so the Norse dimension has been deepened by players. Like, for example, with the construction of more historically precise architectures or clothes or weapons. Or even the fans of the imperial soldiers that have built more historically based clothes, not clothes, divisa, armor for imperial soldiers, okay? Then, obviously, the community can create a series of events and challenges and give us support and guidance for the players. The modding has been integrated in the video game since 2019. Before, modding was just an activity made by the community, but outside the game. The Bethesda decided to integrate in the game itself. And this is, I think, one of the first time that a software house understands that the community can guarantee to the game an infinite life. But they have to control it, because the lore can be augmented by the players, but not without borders. So, my analysis has been made with a two-dimensional quantitative approach and a qualitative approach. The quantitative approach has been made with the measure of some keywords in 3 subreddits, which are Skyrim, Skyrim mods, and Teslore. I have used the service Communalytic, which is very useful for Reddit, but it was a plan B. It was not my plan A. Why? Because I had a difficulty, an objective difficulty with the software for CAT that I use for the analysis of Telegram channels and of Telegram groups. And so well, I have used this other software, which is not so complete as 4CAT, but it is enough to make a basic analysis. And as you can see, three subreddit. In a first phase, the analysis of a series of keywords like Scandinavian mythology, myth, Thor, Odin, Freya, Viking, Ragnarok, more or less are 20 keywords. And a second phase in which I tried to find a correlation with some keywords socially relevant, as climate change, as gender equality, or Ukraine war, or racism. This is just an example with just few words, but I used approximately 25 keywords, different keywords. And what I was looking for was relevant occurrences, semantic clouds, polarization, something that can suggest me a correlation between the themes. And the result was no result. I didn't find anything. Mm-hmm. Absolutely anything relevant. I just put this here two word clouds, but I really made a lot of experiments, 1 week of attempts to find something useful. But there wasn't anything useful. And I think that the reason are two. The first is what Mirella told us yesterday. There is a not reliable for the quantitative method in the media research, because we cannot trust the software we use. I was using this the software, which is Criminalytic, but the software made a summary of the millions of posts. It is the algorithm that decides what post is relevant or not. And there is no way to understand how the algorithm works. As I was saying yesterday to Giuseppe, I don't know if in Czech Republic or in Norway there is a National Institute for Statistics. In Italy it is called ISTAT. Okay, and I said, it's like the ISTAT in Italy suddenly decides not to publish anymore what they measures. And from that day till on, a series of private enterprises tell people that they have done some kind of contract with ISTAT, with a social institute, and they say, if you pay me, I can tell you the results. But there is no transparency in this. Okay, this is the first reason. The second reason is, as has been studied by many research in this field, social relevant themes go where social relevant themes are relevant, and not in the community of the games. But I will explain this then. And let's pass to the qualitative approach, which is obviously my favorite approach. It has been approached in 4 phases: playing the video games and interviewing other players, and the direct observation of the Skyrim subreddit, just one, Skyrim, because it is the main subreddit, by the platform search engine, and the analysis of the highest ranking posts. So the variables were top and hot, and I analyzed the first 10 posts. Okay, and I know that it is not the perfect word. It is not the what we could do. But I ask myself, why I tell that it is not the perfect work I can do? Because there is a myth, and this myth is that the algorithm permits us to know one-to-one map. But a map is never one-to-one. A map can be a scale of something. You lose something, but it is inevitable. Then the keywords related to Norse mythology were analyzed, and at the end there was a textual analysis with a semiotic approach, which is my approach of the most relevant documents. And something was found, okay, in this way. Now, what I understood is, and my conclusions was that Norse mythology has a precise function, which is to be the narrative infrastructure for the construction of the narrative world. But the lore is the lore. Narrative mythology has the function of a construction, of an infrastructure, yes, but in the game. It never becomes ideology. It never crosses with social relevant themes in the game. If it touches social relevant themes, it gets outside. It goes in other groups, in other dimensions. And there is even one possible interpretation. This is a quotation of Jung. The heroes are usually wanderers, and wandering is a symbol of longing, of the restless urge which never finds its object, of nostalgia for the lost mother. The mother and the mother goddess, it is an archetype that I see, maybe because I come from another culture, in the Norse mythology. Nordic mythology, it's a winter mythology. The setting is with ice, with snow. It is set in caves underground, and what the hero is looking for is the warmth, is the fire, is the protection of the earth. And in this way, it is the looking for the nostalgia, the looking for the mother, the lost mother, the goddess, the mother goddess. So, maybe this could be a reason of the success of Norse mythology in the cultural products. But there is even another conclusion. The lore is the lore. We're going to read, I'm sorry. Indicates that Norse mythology is used by both the creators and players of the video game merely as a protean narrative infrastructure, as I said, but in an open way, to currently construct the possible world of the lords of the games, of the series, etc. On the other hand, contemporary fantasy narratives themselves are based on the rewriting by Tolkien, which is inspired by Norse mythology, and is essentially open to other influences, like, for example, vampires or like other mythologies. Fantasy literature, in turn, serves as a fundamental infrastructure for contemporary gamification, which is the mechanism behind the digital cultural industry. This way, it does not directly produce an ideology in the sense of Van Dyck. It does not directly produce discourses in the sense of Foucault on socially relevant topics, but when this occurs, when this happens, users migrate on other socials. Because my conclusion is that the fact that I didn't find any correlation between Norse mythology themes and social relevant themes is that I was looking in the wrong place. Probably, if we could look in other places, we could understand that there is an influence. But I think that it's impossible to understand this with quantitative meaning, with quantitative approaches. I think that could be made analyzing posts or interviewing people. We will never know if what we are thinking is the truth. But after all, our goal is not to discover the truth, but to find possible truth to investigate, so we can understand our society. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what I would like to start to introduce term word Nordalization. This was term which I was framing two courses in two different universities. For our university, I was working on this perspective of North, utilization of North, values associated with North for commercial purposes, because we were teaching students of marketing communication. So it was, we were looking on processes of branding and North as a label, as a trendy label. And for the other group of students, which are civil engineers or architects and urban planners, so we were looking on how aesthetic, which is associated with North, and how place, the concept of place, nature, biotopes of harmony, and even public spaces, how it's approached, and how it's how North is interpreted outside of geographical location. We had yesterday similar talks. It was extremely interesting to see how Mediterranean cultures are taken, or history are taken out of the region and used for quite serious and important purposes in completely different regions. So first, when we started to look in the course of aesthetic and sociology, look in this history, so we were looking on historical maps and how North was stereotyped and used aesthetically in the drawing which are on the edges of maps, because it's extremely interesting because that's the main message. It's sort of short story or comic stories. It gives the first idea of the region which map is presenting. What you are looking on, this is map from 1701, and it's about stereotypes which are even now associated with Lapland. It's reduced to the perspective of snow, ice, reindeers, people working with reindeers, and so on. It was also we were looking on different discoveries or books that were written about North by Czech explorers and missionaries, because there was historically in Greenland, there was missionary activity from Moravia. They introduced embroidery, so the certain patterns and textiles. So there is some link, and it's always with this concept of ideal distant land, with a little bit, not with Nordic mythology, but you will see what I found more relevant is this either fascination of shamanism, of Nordic shamanism, or a disapproval, because the records from missionaries, they are quite accurate records about the shamanistic activities or shamanistic practice in the north. So, and this is the region, contemporary North map which is presented by Arctic Human Development Report. So it includes also North America, but you mention it here for you because you know this perspective, but even for Czech scholars it was sort of complicated when we included in the study the perspective of Inuits or people from Canada and so on. So it's also the geographic perspective. It's from center of Europe. They look up north, don't consider or leaving the Russian parts outside of this region. So the first, what we discovered as quite significant trendsetter in folklore and fashion, there were series on Netflix which started the series The Killing. And for consumer culture, for marketing, this series, it started this enormous fashion trend or interest in Nordic design patterns and sweaters, and became again a part of chains of fast fashion chains in H&M and other. So it brought back the interest in the patterns, also with the symbolic understanding. It started also the interest among young people to learn how to knit, to produce, because of the trend to do it yourself and work with nature. It has all the marketing potential what is quite relevant for the big global markets, because it's local, it has a story, it's produced by environmentally friendly materials, and so this was among many big chains, smaller producers. There are Facebook groups and other groups where they learn, where they teach each other how to produce this clothes, or to learn the craft of knitting in similar way. So another topic, what we were looking at, or what I was teaching them, was the difference between culture appropriation and appreciation. And there were many cases, many instances where different brands, global brands, they sort of appropriate elements from Nordic culture, what you say, from mythology, but this was just stereotyping, homogenizing perspectives, linked with minimalism, with this clean design, sustainability, but still in this big discourse of mass consumerism. But what they managed to find, there were also some game-changing practices from the big companies, global brands, like Canada Goose. They were introducing like local Inuit designers and women into the brand to show how the traditional clothes was produced, how the knowledge of making like very durable and very good winter clothes, how it was transmitted within the community, within the tribe, and within the family. How it was every stage was important because it could save someone's life who was out there in Arctic. So they were this big company sort of gave voice and platforms for crafts which were forgotten, almost forgotten in some of the local communities, and it was nice to find. Even we were very carefully searching for some forms of greenwashing and whitewashing and many not so ethical practices, but even how the Inuit people or how the local designers, how they saw it. So for them, the elder women, grandmothers, they were actually happy about this possibility to transmit and record the knowledge. So it was, I would sort of connected it with the processes of museification or recording some narratives and crafts. This was in commercial frame, but it was in the practices which we very often see in some recording of oral history museums or some sort of skansems museums. So that was one part, and another like example worth mentioning was this story of sealskin parka. When you Google sealskin parka and Edmond or Goodwill, you will see entire story, because it was for quite a long time it was followed by mainstream media worldwide, because in one shop, small local charity shop, they opened the box and found this rare sealskin parka, and the people from the store, they felt immediately that it's not something that should be sold in a charity, or that it's item with rich history and some heritage value. So they managed to find a cooperative which produced this sealskin parka. They find the community, and at the end it really became part of the local museum in Alberta. And also they were sort of precedent and for the Canadian government that knew. Mirella is always focused on the policy making, so that was the good way. There was a certain policy issue that these items, when they are found, linked with Inuit art, because it's rare, it's not produced in large quantities, also with the connotation of global warming, that these cultures are going to disappear. So the Inuit art, when you look on Amazon or some sales, on internet sales, it is it's very valuable and is collector thought items very much. Recently it gained very high prices, but it was for a long time with art collectors or people interested in ethnic art. It was overlooked because it was considered way too simple. And suddenly, with also the interest in global interest or commercial interest in minimalism, so it brought back this perspective or this Inuit items, art items, to the center of attention of collectors. Okay, so that's one thing. For civil engineers, they were looking on companies, marketing of companies, which are using North as a place where the technical technical products or building materials are tested, and they can demonstrate the quality and long life in harsh climate. This is what I see, what I placed here. It's a commercial activity of Italian central heating company, where they went up north, built a house, and they were showing or broadcasting how the heating works in harsh climate. And they had, I was surprised because it's a completely different area of our focus, but it was when you would like to build a house from roof tiles to all the cement materials, you could find commercial which was using North as a background to prove the quality of materials to withstand the climate in the North. And they were, from media studies or from marketing communication, they were very expensively made commercials. They invested a lot. They were sending entire teams, building houses like this in an environment, testing machineries to prove this competitive advantage. So the North was really background for the product placement, and was taken completely out of context. It was could be in Norway, Finland, Sweden. It wasn't important. It was just North. They used a homogenic stereotype, all this idea of North, and of course in deep winter time. And for architects and for designers, it was quite interesting to see how they perceived design, Scandinavian design, and minimalism, because from them it is like shortcut to successful career, to express themselves, because it's trendy. It is now accepted. It's widely accepted, and also they. One element which is worth mentioning, how they perceived Alvar Aalto and other designers, other architects. They perceived them as a sort of political activists or social activists, that they were articulating new trends or new perspectives. So for those young architects and designers, if they used any sort of Scandinavian design or material, justifying the material, for them it was way to express their concerns about ecological problems, about sustainability, and so on. So it was they are either I would say to simplify it, they are either groups of professionals who are advocates of cement and beton and glass and all this like very modern and very durable material, and there is another group of professionals who consider themselves sort of rebels against this like mainstream building industry, and for them, they use this sort of aesthetic platform to articulate their inner concerns and perspectives. So it was something what we, as end users or consumers of their work, we don't realize. And they don't express it. They work with visual design, not with words and text as we are used to. Okay, so that's yeah. And for what I want now to present you more, it is this concept of place, how North as a place, when it's taken out of this geographical area, how it's thought as an idea, as an ideal biotope of harmony. What I said, some land which is balanced, it's pure, it's sort of perceived as a spiritual home, where the voice of nature is very important, and this process of what I want to present is a research of a group. I could use it as the theory of community of practice, which were actively seeking to create this biotope of harmony based on this Nordic and Arctic perspective, concepts of balanced nature, clean nature, outside of Arctic. From because we discussed Buddhism here before, so the initial idea behind this was in Buddhism, in Japanese Buddhism, the concept of pure land, and it's an ideal, it's a heavenly realm, and it was very close and very similar with this idea. So who were the respondents. So the background of this study, it was they're Czech mushers who were active mushers. They are among them they're European level league athletes, and they're practicing this this sport actively in the country without any historical connection ever to sled dog culture, to mushing, to anything. And they're active racers. I spent over 2 years with contact research, ethnographic research with people who are active in this sport. So. First, the point for the research was the story of this lady. She was one of the most successful Czech mushers, and she made it up to the top in European races. And when she was at the top of her racing career, she gave up, and she said, "I could not economically support any new team, and I don't want to euthanize the dogs, so I stop racing because I want to give a good home for the aging team, they call for the aging dog." And she stepped out of this actively racing career. To compare it with other, it's like giving to be a champion for Wimbledon or something. At the moment, I said my tennis racket, it's not good anymore, so I'm not playing this. So that was the main. And she withdrew. She created a sort of biotope of harmony. She had to, with her story and with others. These people, they are athletes. The respondents, they were in a very good profession, university educated, and they very often had to take the same serious decision very often also to move out of their homes because the neighbors didn't want to have 30 barking dogs in their villages, so they moved somewhere to the mountains. They established similar would say, farm or biotopes of harmony. And very often they changed the profession. They had to learn they had to learn marketing, because they started to sort of work in this ethical tourist industry, which involved also organizing summer camps for children, or educating in ecological activities. Some of them, they had to homeschool their children because it was so far from any infrastructure. And what is interesting, what was similar for this group, they said the North enchanted them, that they were called to be mushers. They knew it from their childhood, either via reading books from Jack London. They all mentioned Jack London. It is it would be really worthwhile to look deeper in these books and read it with the knowledge that Jack London's mother they were very active in Spiritism. So he had practice. So the animal-centered, or many of these books are written from the perspective of animal, because also for my respondents, they sort of perceived their harmonious biotope with the center of with the animal in the center, and dogs were either working as for them functioning as a spiritual animal, totemic animal, or the equal partner in this transformation of the world. What they want to create, new biotope, new some ecological harmonious piece of nature, which could it is very open, it's visible, because there are people, tourists coming, then they're active on social media, because they have to financially support what they are doing. Here there are certain stories. He was active hockey player, so he had all the fame, he had team, he had support, and he gave up all his career and started mushing, because for him it was this this unity. And unity with animal, he considered more fulfilling than the unity with his hockey team. Another he was athlete who was running for Dukla Praha, that he started to train with his dog to run with German Shepherd, and later he switched to sled dog breeds, because in these moments, the respondents started to talk about spiritual and physical, some mystical experience when they maintain trance experience. When they get in the movement, they feel unity with the animals that sort of contributes to their physical potential. It accelerates them, but also it gives them the inner peace and balance, and also the unity with the nature, with surrounding. So that was one thing. Yeah. So I was looking on this closeness and unity from the perspective of Donna Haraway on Species Meat. So it was really a different age groups, aging dogs, dogs that were young, children who brought there, people who were fascinated by this possibility to experience sled dog rides as a tourist. So it was very small but very impactful biotopes for the region where they are operated, because they were outsiders, always like the shamans. They were always sort of outsiders of mainstream society. But even my respondents, they had impact at the end on the region where they were living, because they draw tourism to this area. They were sort of models for different ecological tourism, or some sustainable or new technologies, like building houses and so on. I was looking for. It was interesting. We had a lot of talks how they perceived dogs as spirit animals. Someone we mentioned a few times wolves here yesterday. So it was for them. This was this spirit of wolf, of some animal, because they are sled dogs are domesticated, but they still maintain a lot of instincts of wild animals. So that was very fascinating for them, or they respected the sled dogs more than they would any domestic breeds. And the aim, this is the camp, summer camp of the first of Jana Henichová, where she with intention she said she wants children to have experience with sick or aging animals, or like vulnerable creatures or partners in life. Then they have to participate in the camp, and they have to each is assigned one dog, and they take care of the dogs for the time, and they have very good responses. So it is here, as you could see, for them it's special moment. The riding, it was sort of like worship, the solitude, the connection with nature, and the connection with animal. And even when they started in very competitive environment, so it was completely different transformation at the end. What they said is one of the organizer, he was IT specialist, he's still like very qualified, so he combines like his work from home, his care for dog, and they're basically he said he was called to do this, to function, to create this biotope of harmony, and why they could be seen as sort of in this shamanistic practice, because they feel or they do it actively and consciously. They want to function as a healers for society, for the local communities, but even in bigger perspective, to be the model, to have this biotope of harmony, which could bring back some sort of balance and harmony to broader society. Okay, to bring the ideal, the perfect, the illusion or the concept of North to regions which are outside of Arctic. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.